The moment I walked into the estate's grand hall, I felt it, that hush. That subtle shift in air when you enter a room where you're not wanted. My heels echoed across the marble, but not a single face turned to welcome me. My stepsister, Vanessa, raised her glass of champagne and whispered to the cousin beside her. Then came the smile.
Thin.
Plastic.
Fake.
"Look who finally showed up," she said, her voice sugary with venom. I smiled politely and walked toward the sitting room where the lawyer waited. My hands were trembling, but I kept my chin high. It was my father's will reading, after all. And despite everything, I still called him Dad. Then I saw her, her, my stepmother, Elaine. Tall, elegant, poised like royalty in her black dress and pearls. She sat in my father's favorite chair like she'd always belonged there. "You can sit over there, dear," she said without looking at me, pointing toward the farthest seat in the corner. "This is for family." My stomach twisted. I said nothing. I didn't want to make a scene. But then, as I moved to the side, her voice rang out. Sharp, clear, and cold. "You were adopted out of pity," Elaine said. "You have no claim here." The room went silent. My heartbeat slammed into my ears. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. But everyone was staring, watching, waiting for my reaction like it was a reality show. I glanced to the floor. My breath caught.
I wanted to say something.
Anything. But I couldn't find the words. "I don't want trouble today," she added, sipping her drink. "Just accept the truth and don't embarrass yourself." My mouth opened slightly, but I saw Vanessa smirking. She wanted me to explode. They all did. So I didn't. I just sat down. Quietly.
Calmly.
Because something inside me whispered. Don't respond. Not yet. Let the truth speak first. The lawyer, Mr. Warren, looked as uncomfortable as I felt. He shuffled the papers in his hands, cleared his throat, and glanced at me, just for a moment. Almost like he knew. He opened the folder. "Shall we begin?" "Absolutely. Here is part 2 of 5, keeping the same emotionally intense tone, natural pacing, realistic dialogue, and full depth. This part brings tension, slow-building suspense, and deep character reactions while remaining clipchamp-friendly and true to your format." Part 2. They thought I'd stay quiet, but the safe said otherwise. Mr. Warren adjusted his glasses, his voice steady but dry. "As executor of the late Mr. James Ellison's estate, I will now read the official will, dated 2 months before his passing." Elaine raised her chin with smug confidence. Vanessa leaned back, crossing her arms like she already owned the place. I sat still, my fingers curled tight in my lap. The lawyer continued. "Before I proceed, the deceased has requested we retrieve one item first. A personal safe, locked away in his office." Elaine frowned. "That wasn't part of the agenda." "I'm simply following the legal instruction left in writing by Mr. Ellison," he replied, not unkindly. "The safe must be opened before the reading." Something shifted in the room. Eyes darted. Whispers began to crawl across the velvet air. Vanessa's polished nails tapped nervously against the side table. Elaine's voice turned clipped. "There's nothing in that safe that matters." "Then it won't hurt to open it," I said softly, and for the first time since I'd arrived, she looked directly at me. Her stare was ice. Mr. Warren nodded to his assistant, who disappeared down the hallway. For 5 long minutes, silence settled over the room like a heavy wool coat. You could feel the discomfort. No one moved. Finally, the assistant returned, carrying a black fireproof box with a small brass dial. Elaine stiffened. Warren took the safe, set it down gently, and entered the code. It clicked. What happened next was subtle. He opened it, looked inside, and froze for a moment. Just enough to draw everyone's attention. Just enough to make Elaine's foot twitch slightly beneath her dress. He pulled out a manila envelope. Sealed.
Worn.
And stamped with my father's signature. He opened it slowly. "This," Mr. Warren said, holding up a document, "is the original will, signed and notarized. And it overrides the publicly filed version." Elaine shot up from her seat. That's not possible. James filed everything through me. He updated it, Warren said calmly. 2 months before his death. Quietly. Legally. And without your knowledge. The air was sucked out of the room. Elaine's lips parted. No words came out. Mr. Warren cleared his throat and began to read. James Edward Ellison, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this my final will and testament.
He paused.
And I name as sole beneficiary and rightful heir my daughter, Hannah Grace Ellison. Silence. It was deafening. My heart slammed so hard, I thought it would burst through my ribs. I knew it, a voice burst, Vanessa. She jumped up. You forged that. There's no way Dad would have left this to her. She's not even blood. Elaine's voice cracked. James wouldn't do this. He loved me. He promised. Please sit down, Warren said firmly. This document has been verified. The handwriting, the date, and the witness signatures match perfectly. If you wish to challenge it, you're welcome to take legal action. But I must warn you, there are recordings as well. Elaine blinked. Our recordings? Yes. His tone didn't waver. Video and audio recordings from Mr. Ellison, stored in a USB within the safe. Should any dispute arise, they are to be presented to the court. And the family. Vanessa looked like she'd been slapped. Elaine's face turned ghostly pale. I felt my breath catch again. But this time, it wasn't from humiliation or fear. It was something else. Asterisk relief. Truth. Justice. Asterisk. I wasn't smiling. I didn't gloat. I just sat there, staring straight ahead, as the people who'd mocked me now stared like I was a stranger in their house. But it wasn't their house anymore. It was mine. Elaine didn't sit back down. She just stood there, stunned, her perfectly manicured hands trembling slightly at her sides. Her voice, once so sharp and commanding, had vanished. Vanessa's glare could have burned holes in the wall. This is a setup, she hissed. She's playing us. This isn't real. It can't be. But no one backed her. Not even her cousin Sophie, who had always laughed the loudest at me during family events. Sophie looked away, pretending to study the wallpaper. Mr. Warren placed the will gently on the table like it was made of glass. Everything, assets, properties, and business shares, have been reassigned as per this version of the will. Effective immediately. Miss Hannah Ellison, he turned to me. You are the legal heir. The room tilted in my vision. I felt my throat tighten. I didn't cry. Not yet. But the tears were hovering, close, hot, and sharp. I wanted to scream, to yell, to demand why they treated me like I didn't belong. But instead, I just sat still, letting the weight of it all sink in. Elaine finally found her voice. Why would James do this to me? She whispered. I took care of him. I stood by his side for 20 years. He owed me. My eyes met hers. No one owes love, Elaine, I said, my voice quiet. It's given, not traded. She flinched like I'd slapped her. But there was no hatred in my tone, just truth. Vanessa paced like a caged animal. You think you've won something, huh? She spat. You think walking in here, pretending to be the victim, makes you the hero? I didn't come here to win, I replied. I came because he asked me to. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded letter, one I'd read so many times. The edges were soft. My father had mailed it to me 2 weeks before he died. The envelope had only 3 words. Don't miss this. Mr. Warren nodded. Mr. Ellison wanted her here. He planned this carefully. Elaine's breath shook. He didn't even say goodbye to me. It was the first time I saw something crack in her. Beneath the coldness, the elegance, the disdain, there was loss, maybe even regret. And for a moment, I pitied her. Not because she'd lost the inheritance, but because she never truly understood the man she lived with for 2 decades. She didn't know he'd kept old drawings of mine from 2nd grade. That he secretly paid for my college, even after she convinced him I didn't deserve it. She didn't know the way he cried the night I called him Dad again after years of silence. She never saw him as I did. And she never realized he saw me. even when she tried to make me invisible. I stood up slowly. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to humiliate anyone. This house, this inheritance, none of it brings me joy if it means tearing more people apart. Vanessa scoffed. You think you're some saint now?
No, I said.
I think I'm finally free. And for the first time in that house, I walked out without looking back. The old garden behind the estate hadn't changed. Dad's roses still bloomed there, wild and a bit overgrown, just the way he liked them. I sat on the stone bench he'd carved himself years ago and looked out of the place I once called home. Now it was mine, but it didn't feel like a victory. Not yet. A part of me still waited for someone to come outside and tell me it was all a mistake, that they'd laugh and say, "Just kidding. Get out." But no one came. I stayed in that garden until the sun started dipping behind the hedges. The soft orange glow made everything feel surreal. And as I sat there, thinking about the chaos inside, I heard the creak of footsteps behind me. Elaine. She wasn't wearing her polished perfection anymore. Her jacket was off, her hair wind-tossed, and her eyes softer. Older.
Real.
I thought you'd be packing by now, I said quietly. She gave a bitter chuckle. That makes two of us. I didn't look at her. I didn't move. I didn't know if I wanted her to say something cruel again, or if I was just waiting to see if she'd surprise me. She stood beside the bench, but didn't sit. I always saw you as a threat, she finally said. From the moment James brought you home. I kept my eyes on the garden. I was a kid. I know. Her voice wavered. And you still scared me. That made me turn. She met my gaze. Because he loved you differently. Not out of duty. Not out of guilt. He loved you. Fully. Unconditionally. I don't think I ever had that from him. Her honesty stunned me. I didn't want his money, she whispered. I wanted to feel like I mattered. And when he updated that will, without even telling me, it broke something in me. I swallowed hard. He told me he forgave you even if he couldn't tell you himself. Her breath caught. He said that. I nodded. He just didn't know how to show it. Silence. A long, weighted pause hung between us. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger toward her. I felt something different. Understanding. She finally sat down beside me, hands trembling. What are you going to do now? With all of this? I looked out at the roses again. I'm not selling the house, I said. And I'm not changing the staff. I'll keep everything going the way he did. Quietly. With kindness. She exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for months. And you, I added softly, can stay in the guest house. For as long as you need. I won't throw you out. Her eyes widened. Why? Because he would have wanted me to take the high road, I said. And I finally understand why. Her lip trembled, and for the first time, tears welled in her eyes. I never gave you a chance. No, I agreed. But I'm giving you one. She looked away, wiping her face. And without another word, she stood and walked back inside. Quieter this time. Slower. I didn't follow her. Because I had my own peace to sit with. 2 weeks passed. The estate slowly quieted down, and so did the whispers. The phone stopped ringing with relatives just checking in. The cousins who once mocked me went silent. Even Vanessa didn't show her face again. Not after Mr. Warren sent her the official letter barring her from contesting the will unless she wanted to go to court against her father's recorded testimony. She didn't. But Elaine stayed. Not in the main house. She respected the boundaries. She moved into the guest house out back, modest, quiet, and surrounded by the garden Dad planted himself. Some days, I forgot she was even there. Other days, I'd catch a glimpse of her through the kitchen window, carrying books or trimming flowers. She was changing and it was slow, but I saw it. So when Mr. Warren called and said he had one more envelope left, I wasn't surprised. But I was surprised by who it was for. It's addressed to Elaine, he said. From your father. He left it sealed. Told me to deliver it after the will was settled, and the house was quiet. He handed it to me in a thick manila envelope. It was heavy, and written in my father's unmistakable cursive. Elaine, read this alone. Then decide. I walked across the garden barefoot that evening. The grass was cold from the sprinkler, and the moon was low behind the hedges. Elaine was out on the porch, wearing a plain gray sweater, sipping from a chipped mug I remembered from my childhood. When she saw me, she didn't flinch. "I figured you'd come eventually," she said, setting the mug down. I handed her the envelope. She stared at it. "What is it?" "From him," I said. "His last letter. He wanted you to read it. Alone." Her eyes glistened immediately. She took it with careful fingers, almost afraid it would break. "I'll give you space," I said, already turning to go. But she called after me, her voice shaking. "Hannah." I turned back. "Thank you," she whispered. I just nodded. I didn't ask what the letter said. I never would. But something changed after that night. I could see it in her steps, in her silences, in the way she stopped glaring and started softening. One morning, as I stood in the kitchen making coffee, she walked in, not dressed up, not pretending, not performing, just real. "Would you like to come to the garden with me?" she asked. I looked at her carefully. "Sure." We walked quietly down to the roses. She brought clippers. I brought gloves. Together, we started cleaning up the beds, just like Dad used to. Halfway through, she paused. "He told me in that letter," she said softly, "that he knew he'd failed both of us. That he let fear keep him silent when he should have stood up for you more. And that he let resentment build in me when he should have cleared the air." She clipped a dried bloom and dropped it gently into the basket. "He said if I wanted peace, I had to stop guarding a house and start building a home." I didn't know what to say. So I just kept digging in the dirt, letting her words settle like soil over a seed. That spring, I started something new. Not a charity. Not a business. Not some glamorous foundation with my name in gold. I opened a quiet reading center in the back wing of the house for foster kids.
Just like I used to be.
Kids who didn't need to be reminded of what they didn't have, but rather reminded of who they could become. I named it after my dad. The James Ellison Room. Elaine donated her jewelry to fund the first wave of books. She never said much about it, but she came to every reading night, sat in the back with tea, smiled at the kids like they were grandkids she'd never met. And she never once corrected anyone who called me his daughter. Because they were right. One day, a little girl tugged on my hand after story time and said, "Are you the lady who owns this big house?" I smiled. "I guess so." She blinked. "That's cool. You don't look mean." I laughed. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week." She tilted her head. "Was it hard getting this big house?" I paused. "Yes," I said honestly. "But the hardest part wasn't getting it. It was believing I was allowed to belong in it." She nodded like she understood completely. Later that night, I stood outside and looked at the lights inside the estate. The same walls that once made me feel small now made me feel whole. Not because I took revenge. Not because I proved anyone wrong. But because I didn't let their cruelty define my worth. Because I stayed kind. Because I walked through the fire and chose not to throw it back at them. And in doing that, I finally understood why he left it all to me. Not because I was his only daughter, but because I was the only one who still saw this house as a place to grow something good.